I just love that new intro. Here we are, the comic book crowd, everybody. How you all doing out there in YouTube land? Hope you're all doing okay this weekend. We're doing great. We're doing great. And so we have some great comic book people here. And I'm not counting myself because God knows I'm not. But we have Alan from Climbing Comics. Hi, Alan. How you doing? Welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Good.
Doing well. I'm going to go down this time because we usually leave somebody for the end. We have the one, the only Doug Bratton, the only professional comic book person here on tonight. Hey, Doug, how you doing tonight?
I froze.
Okay. And
Sorry, I froze.
That's okay. We all freeze from now and then. Mark Andrews. Mark, we're so happy to have you. Part of the comic book crowd.
I am so pleased to be here, and I am freezing because it's snowing right now outside my house.
It's 80 degrees down here in Naples, Florida. Sorry about that, Mark. You know? And last but not least, not even last. Well, let's keep him to last. We have Chewbacca here tonight. How you doing, Chewbacca? Yes, here he is. So that's our sixth person here today. And now, last but not least, we have Matt Woods from Matt Woods Comics. Matt, how you doing tonight?
You know, Joe, doing great. I had to have my co-pilot here today because Steve White told me that it looks like Chewbacca should be here. And the great Tina, she sent an A-OK of a life-size cutout of Chewbacca. This thing's like 7 foot tall, but we had to bend the back so that it wouldn't, so I could put it next
to the camera.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, before we get started, we have a great topic tonight. I mean, it's just fantastic. But before we get to that, let's see who's in the chat. So let's start off Steve White. Hey, Steve. Hello to you too. Good to have you here tonight. And we have my DC compatriot, my DC Watch compatriot, Pretty Fly for a Filipino guy. Hey, Pretty Fly. Yeah, we love Pretty Fly. All right, let's see who else we get. And we have Trev, the shipping guru. Trev, you got some great Instagram posts lately and some really cool videos on your YouTube channel. So check out Trev. He's doing really well. We have Paul, Psychedelic Comics. Paul, I always wonder why it's Psychedelic Comics. I have to ask you that. If I see you down at the New York Comic Con this time, you know, I'm going to ask you that question because I'm sure you can't divulge that. And my other DC compatriot from DC Watch, we have Dave of Action Figure Comedy, who says he's just here to heckle his brother Doug.
He speaks the truth.
Brotherly love. Brotherly
Well,
love.
that's good. You know,
Dave is a better looking Bratton brother. Let's not lie.
And Doug, at least someone is here for you.
I protest that.
Or I'm sorry, Breton.
And we have Madam Blaster. Madam, it's so great to see you here. Thanks for showing up for today's show. Stephanie is here. Let's see if we have anybody else that we can call out here. Steve Psychedelic, Madam Blaster, and I might have caught up. You see Seth? I'm not down there yet.
Oh, sorry.
Did I miss him?
Yeah.
No, here he is. Okay, so we have Jackson Roy Kirk, who's here to heckle Matt Woods.
That's my buddy.
And here's Seth. How you doing, Seth? Good to see you, Seth. I'm glad you're here. Let's see.
And Phil. Did we say Phil already?
No, I didn't say Phil.
Yep.
Did I miss Phil? Oh, there he is.
Yep.
Hey, Phil. Jackson, howdy. He's saying howdy to Jackson. What about me? All right. I think we caught up with everybody. Oh, wait a minute. The Chewbacca person herself. Tina, how nice. You must have heard your ears ringing.
My favorite.
There. Hey, Chewy.
We were talking about you, Tina.
Chewy, say something to Tina, please. There you go. How do you like that, Tina? He's actually talking to you. Anyway,
nobody knows who's making that sound. That's what makes it great.
It's Chewy.
It's Chewy, of course.
People keep saying that DC Watch thing is so well produced. Come on, Chewbacca. This has got to be better. It's got to be better. Anyway, so tonight we have a really great topic that was suggested by Doug. So we thank him for that. And basically the topic has to do with Now, you're a comic book collector, right? So you're collecting comics. Hopefully, you're collecting comics to read and to enjoy as well. But sometimes you collect comics for other reasons, like maybe investment reasons, maybe just to leave to your son, daughter, whatever, and let them sell it and buy a house with it or something like that. So key comics are pretty simple. You can go on the Key Collector app and find out what's there, but then everybody knows that. But suppose, based on just your inherent knowledge or your research online and so forth, you come up with something that you think, for whatever reason, could be a key in the future. Could be something that other collectors will salivate over, that FOMO could attach to a particular comic book or a series of comic books. What do? Do you tell people about it? Do you not tell people about it? Do you tell just certain people about it? What do you do? That's the dilemma. That's the question for tonight. And so to start it off, since I figured Doug was the guy who brought up the question, Doug, why don't you start us off? What do you think?
There's so much to unpack. I will say that what prompted the thought was, for a little over a year, I wrote a series of videos for Reggie called Buy These Books Now, where we would identify keys that weren't yet in Key Collector, because Key Collector is an amazing tool, but it's also kind of become the one and only source that many, many collectors view as the way to identify a key. And the reality is there's lots of keys, just some aren't on the app yet or aren't known as well. So we did this series. It was a lot of fun. We identified some really cool books. It wasn't just me. I had other people like this guy, Mark, sorry, I can't figure out which way to point, who would help
Opposite of what you think. Opposite of what you think.
Who would help identify these. But then when I stopped doing it, basically because I didn't have the time when I was working on isolation more, I started identifying Sandman keys that I knew were still under the radar and others weren't aware of. Right. And I enjoyed that as well, because then I could go out in my own little treasure hunt and find these books. So it was fun identifying books and sharing them with the community, but it's also been kind of fun keeping some little secrets just for myself. And that's what made me think of the idea, and I threw it out to you, Joe.
Okay, so the thing is this now. So, I mean, there are different type of collectors. People collect for different reasons. A lot of people collect just for covers. When you take a look at Key Collector app, I mean, there are a lot of different reasons why a comic is a key, but not necessarily why there might be some value to it. Either inherent value because somebody just likes the character or what have you, or because of the cover, or whether it's a second print or a first print. So what kind of factors, and we can open up to everybody here, but Doug, what would be one factor that you think you would look at to say, hey, this may be I don't know if you want to call them a hidden key or, future key or something like that. What do you think?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head that the term key means something different to everyone. There's all the firsts, which there's tons of, but there are things like classic covers and classic battle between that really aren't keys in the classic sense of like a first appearance or a first book. So like, to me, I look at a key as a book that for one reason or another, a lot of people at some point become interested in getting for a unique reason. So that's a very, very broad definition, but I think that's probably the most realistic definition for right now.
Now, right, and the reason for that could be that maybe it's rare, right?
Yeah,
that could be the rarity could be it.
I think when you get into under-identified keys, things like, value is driven by supply and demand, period. So if there's a ton of demand for Hulk 181 for obvious reasons, it has value. The supply of that book is ridiculous. I mean, there's more CG Seed copies. There's probably 10 to 15 times more CG Seed copies of Hulk 181 than some of the lesser known, more modern keys, especially when you start getting into like newsstand variants from the late 90s and 2000s and things of that nature. So I do think scarcity plays a factor, but a book can be scarce, and if no one cares about it, then there's no demand. So
that's the point. Before I open it up to everybody else, because see, Matt Woods is looking for stuff to show, but
Chewbacca bailed.
Chewbacca just knocked over. So the normal thing is something like this, and I made kind of a little list for myself so I wouldn't forget. So it could be like a rare comic book. It could be a first appearance. It could be a memorable issue, for example, like if it's something where something special happened to a particular comic book character. But when we're talking about stuff, I mean, there's stuff that's out there, and we know first appearance of this person, first appearance of that person, number one issue of a particular character. But now we're talking about stuff that we're holding close to the vest potentially. So they're out there. They're not on Key Collector app. There might be some people that know about it, but what might happen to make you think, hey, this is something that I think might be worthwhile to buy, let's say, or to hold on to if you already have it. So we can open up to everybody else if somebody wants to bring it up. And I think that's what we're talking about now is kind of what's the hidden key? What makes something, that's other people don't know about, make it important? Because you have first appearances of a lot of different people, and the comic book might not be valuable at all, or have nobody really care about it too much, and not a lot of sales, nothing like that, unless it's old and a high, an old comic book. But so what are we talking about here? Because if I want to do that, I want to know what people think so that I could be looking for these type of comic books as well.
Well, I have something to add to that too. Okay. There's a bunch of terms that get thrown around. Key. And honestly, I really like Doug's definition. Like there's so many different versions of it, but ultimately it's a book that a lot of people want. But then we have this term grail. Now, a lot of times grails can be keys. Sometimes a grail could be the first comic book that you had ever bought as a kid. And to you, that's the book that you want more than anything else. And that's your personal grail. Grails can be keys. They don't have to be. So I think we are talking about books that, like people are going to want. And I really like this one. Doug, this is a great idea. Keys that nobody knows about yet, which they may become books that everyone's going to want here in the future. So I'm really excited about this month's episode of the Comic Book Crowd.
I think if I can jump in, like
Sure.
the unknown keys, and it depends on, again, like Doug's definition is great. But it is somewhat like a key is which category. And Joe, you mentioned all the categories on Key Collector. And one of them that I'll focus on for this is, for example, like the artists. The artists are, what are their keys? And, I've got a couple of examples here that aren't in the big system yet that I think people might be interested in. And I have not really struggled with telling anyone. I first did my research because I didn't want to come up and say, hey, look what I think, and be completely wrong. But I think I'm close and I think I'm okay, but I'll throw that up to the rest of you. But are they going to be sought after, and are they going to be $1 million books? No. But if somebody is interested in the artist's work and their progression from where they started, like if you look at, some of the great artists that we love now, some of their first work, like, Coyote 13, right? And then you look at where he is now, right?
That's great.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the comic book, the artist Care Andrews. Absolutely
Sure.
no relation.
Yeah.
Okay. Ultimate
Right.
Spider-Man, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's his first book.
Is it
All right,
really?
hold on.
The Wonderlanders out of Hong Kong, 1999.
Wow.
So
Nice.
Wow.
not an easy
Never even
book
heard
to
of that
find.
book.
Not an easy book to find, but for me,
Yeah.
that's one of the things I look as a key. That
Uh-huh.
okay, this he's making a name for himself. I think he's got about 45 titles on Key Collector that they've said are keys because of whatever reason. And this is where this young guy, and I will brag a little bit, Canadian artist, this is where he started, is this book from Hong Kong, which is kind of anime. And he's starting to make a name for himself. So I like to grab books like this. Is this going to be worth $1 billion? No, but as a key, as a niche area to collect in, I think that I'd like to tell people and promote the artist and the book and send people looking for the book.
See, but that's right. And Alan, I'll let you get in here. But see, now that brings up like some more of the discussion of a key. It could be, that might be like, I don't know if we want to say Grail is more personal, if we want to use it that way. But if a key, if it's something where you want to keep it to yourself, like you just told me about that, Mark, and no offense, but I could care less, really.
None taken. Because again, it's not a big book. He's not a big artist.
Okay.
But if you're a fan of that artist,
yes,
and that artist has some significance, 30, 40 years is remembered as a great from their generation, then that book, Joe could care less now, but who knows what the future holds. And that's what's kind of fun about it.
So
okay, but then you have to have a basis for that, don't you? Though I mean,
yeah. Just to add to that, you guys may have heard of this artist that this is my last one, Joe. I'll mention. Well, probably not, but anyway, this is the last one I'll mention. You guys may have heard of this guy. His name is Neil Adams.
No.
Who?
Yeah, a few people have heard about him. And what's he known for? He's known for drawing Batman, right? You look anywhere on Key Collector and all sorts of what's his very first, like I can tell you, his very first Marvel book is this one.
Right.
First one he ever did. And a lot of people know that.
Mm-hmm.
What's his first DC book?
I assume Green Lantern, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I forgot now. I knew the answer to that question.
There you go.
Action Comics.
Action
Yes,
Comics.
that's right.
November 1967.
Mm-hmm.
Not in Key Collector. It's only in his biography. This and Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane, published in the same month and year.
Right.
Okay.
So
Well, let me
Neil
tell you
Adams' very first DC book is Superman. It's not Batman.
That's right. And I right now, because I did a video on the 10 best or something. I forget what I called it. And I'm now working on Neil Adams' Superman.
Yeah.
And that's why I couldn't remember what it was, but I know it's in my research that I'm looking at. And so I'm going to do that pretty soon. But you're right. When you look into the history of some of these people, that might be interesting. So the question is, might that book, I mean, he's passed away now, might that book be something? Because I think if we're talking about whether you're going to disclose it or not disclose it, I mean, you could disclose that, and that's interesting, and people will like it. And there might be some people say, yeah, I think I'd like to get that book, because I'm a Neil Adams fan, and it'd be great to have his first, DC stuff. But does that divulging that, is that an issue? Is that a problem? Is that something that you may not want to divulge? And I think that's kind of what we're talking about today. Is there something where you might want to think twice about it, Alan?
Yeah. So, Mark, you hit on a lot of the very similar concept of books that I have on a stack here. But from what you were saying, Joe, I think for keys, so we're all I think the majority of the comic book community are savvy collectors. I would look at Key Collector as layer one, right? This is where, if you don't know what a key is, what you're looking for, that's your primary place.
Right.
Mark, you brought up, I think, if you kind of do that second, third layer of research of a specific artist, what their first published art was, like you start getting into like these nuance like way of collecting, and that's definitely a different type of key, right? So it might not be the key generally for everyone, but it might be a key for niche collectors who like Neil Adams or who like Todd McFarlane. I was looking for the Coyote book. I don't have that one. I have like one of his second or third books, and that's what I have here. But I think in terms of sharing this information, it's not too hard to find. Some of the things are not too hard to find. It's just that how hard do people want to do that research, right? Because I feel like doing a little bit of research, you could get into a lot of like really cool books that might be grails in the future, right? That's why I really liked what you were saying before, Doug, in terms of you should get these comic books now. They're not on Key Collector. You did that secondary, tertiary research that other people don't necessarily do themselves.
Yep. And Alan, to connect those dots and kind of answer Joe's question, if you don't share that information widely, you might be the only person out there looking for those books. And some of them aren't going to be easy to find because they're not known. But when they pop up on eBay, you might get them for next to nothing. If you'll find them in dollar bins sometimes. So to me, one of the benefits of at least hanging on to that information for a while personally might be to get a few copies. You know, once you go on Joe's YouTube channel and you share the first DC appearance of Neil Adams and someone shoots Key Collector a message, now you might be paying $50 on eBay instead of $10.
I just bought 5 copies of that for like $5 a piece.
There you go.
And you notice that
that's legit.
It was in my hand when I told you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You need to post that on eBay. Joe's going to be buying it here.
But again, I don't know if that's everything I've researched, Joe, and you're doing the research more. I think that is it, but I don't know. Right?
I think you're right, but I have to go back and see what my research was because, that was actually not going to be one of my 10 greatest or best, but I was going to throw that in as, I do this historical stuff all the time, right? So I was going to throw that in as, did you know this was his first Marvel? This was his first DC. And that
you
rings true in my head.
You want to listen to me anyway. So
yeah, that's it.
Honestly, like what I'll say though is all of us, there's like information coming from us is very different than if it were to come from someone from your LCS. We are on a platform talking about a book that 14 people are now watching and could actually go out and look for. But like, if I'm at my local LCS, I'm more like kind of open to share, to be like, hey, have you looked into this book? I know you like this. So I feel like in those venues, I'm a little bit more open with sharing that information, mainly because like, this isn't financial advice or anything, but it's all very subjective, right? So I kind of share my keys with people that I know might like it because they might be keys just for a few people, but not the now 15 people that are watching.
And that's part of it, right? I mean, you're part of a comic community, right? And so the question is, do you want to kind of help people know more about the books and like increase their knowledge, make them, kind of better, I guess, proponents of comic collecting and all of that? Or do you not? Or do you say, I don't know if Doug, if you said this exactly, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to get a few of these copies, then I'll tell people about it, that type of thing. Is that like, is that more like saying, in case this doesn't become valuable, in the sense that more people want it, so the price goes up, I won't have to pay that price. I've got my 1 or 2 or 3 copies.
Yeah. And to that point, someone like Reggie, who has a massive platform, and I think he'd be okay with me sharing this. There were times when I'd send a script and there'd be a book. He would be like, oh, that's really cool. I really want that book. And I'd say, hey, here's a link. You can buy it on eBay for $5. And he was like, no, I can't buy it because there have been times where I've done the show and like 50 copies sell on eBay within 24 hours and it's on a hot list. And he's like, even though I'm not doing it to pump and dump, and it would be for my personal collection. Like, I just can't even appear with the level of influence I have to look as if I'm trying to promote a book because I own it in my collection. So
and that's because he's very. I mean, he's got a morality thing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But not everybody's like that.
high
You know?
integrity.
What happened with this
absolutely.
one, Doug? Wasn't it when we talked about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That
did.
there were both those books we talked about them. We did the research, and Reggie put them on, and they were bang on the Key Collector that night, right after the show.
Yeah.
And you couldn't buy one of those books for. Yeah, they went crazy.
Can I ask you a question? I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
But I was going to mention a book that Reggie absolutely changed the value and the trajectory of. That's this book right here.
Yeah.
ASM 110. Guys, I'm not joking. This is a super cheap book. I picked this copy up on eBay quite a few years ago when it was really nothing. This same book right now, the value of it is a lot more than it ever used to be.
Right.
1000% because of Reggie Collects YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But pretty much everybody in the YouTube comic book community, they know of this. Comic Tom has highlighted this. Jem Mintz has highlighted this. I mean, the big YouTube channels. So this book here, I know what you're talking about, Doug, whenever he says he has to watch what books he talks about because they can just blow up.
Matt, how
And-
many copies do you have?
More than enough, Joe.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know how many at the very moment in time, but the number fluctuates. I give some away. If I see them, I pick them up. So it fluctuates.
Yeah, that's true. So let me go back and ask Mark and Doug a question. So you had those Planet of the Apes comics there, right?
Yep.
So what was it about those comic books that made you think that it fit kind of this loose definition of key or desirable comic book in the future, that would made your blog?
So there's been a resurgence in Planet of the Apes. Marvel's putting out the books again, and the movies were doing pretty good, much better than. Well, the first series of movies were awesome, and then there was another one that shall not be named, and then they came out with another series that were much better.
Yeah.
And people were talking about them again, and I was thinking to myself, because I went on, I was thinking, you know what, no one's talking about Caesar, like a pretty major character in those shows and those movies, and I knew he was going to mention Turok. Anyway, and so I went back and looked because I have a lot of that series, and I went back and looked to see when did Caesar show up, and then Doug and I got talking back and forth, and I said, hey, this is his first appearance in comics.
Yep.
This is where he originated. Like, here he is on the cover of this as a baby, as an unnamed baby, and in the next issue, this one is when his name is used as Caesar. And we talked about it, and Doug wrote this beautiful script, and a much prettier guy than me put it on YouTube, and it went nuts.
So now the movies, right? We really haven't talked about that, but one of the things, and people were saying, like, we're going to bring up things that we thought. I got a great AOK from Dave, and I do have a bunch of these, not these particular ones. Let me make myself big here on this thing so I could. Oh, are you doing this for me, Alan?
I can, yeah.
Okay, I got it. So these.
Yep.
Now, before
Yes.
what happened with this movie, I had my Shazam stuff out. I'm saying, hey, I wonder what's going to happen with these Shazam books. Maybe they're going to be, worth more or whatever else and that type of stuff, even before the first one. But no go. So it's possible you come up with this, and movies play an important part. The Marvel stuff was going crazy, right?
Yeah.
More so than the DC stuff, obviously. So the movies are kind of big on this area, and people play a lot on that. And really, if it's something that you're going to do for speculation purposes, most of the time you're going to want to buy it. Like you just said, this particular character. Again, one I don't really care about too much, but this particular character, this is his first appearance, maybe whatever else. He may appear in the movies, and it may give that book a bump, right?
Yep.
But it's only of some value to you, either because you don't have the book, and you want to buy it before the bump for your collection, or you want to buy as many as you can at a lower price and sell it during that particular period of time,
Yep.
that short period of time when the book shoots up.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
And-
am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things, like, and I think Doug and I we burned a lot of keystrokes talking about the movies and movie stars and things like that, about, okay, like, when was their first appearance, and is this book going to move, and all those kind of things. Like, when was I think, Doug, we were talking about Clint Eastwood. We were definitely talking about the Conan Arnold Schwarzenegger's first appearance in the comics. Apparently no one absolutely cared that Sting's first appearance in the comics was this comic.
Yeah.
And for some reason it didn't really resonate with collectors. I just thought it was kind of cool. It's Sting's first comic book appearance.
If he had stayed with the Police, maybe it might have made a difference.
Maybe, like, Lee Marvin, that's his first comic book appearance.
I
you
love
know
that.
who Lee Marvin
That
is.
is so cool.
I love that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, for me, is that a cool book? Yes. Is it valuable? No. Is it a key? To me, maybe,
Yeah.
and maybe to a Lee Marvin fan, or to a movie fan, or
There are
to
things called
cinephile.
minor keys that don't have to be giant books.
Yeah.
And that first appearance of Lee Marvin, I don't care who you are, that's just cool. So, you know, Mark, you're talking about that. This is a key, but you know what? We know about this one, but this isn't like a secret key. But that Lee Marvin one, that is a pretty dope, cool book. They don't all have to be, everyone in the world has to like it. If you're a Lee Marvin fan because, I don't know, you like The Dirty Dozen or something, absolutely, that is a great book to own.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that tastes of collectors shift over time.
Right.
And Joe, I think this gets into the, like, yeah, it's possible. For me, it's a fun treasure hunt, and I like picking them up
Right.
on the cheap.
Mhm.
Yes, you can sell them if you time it right, but probably more than 5 years ago, first appearances of characters that were originally in TVs and movies, most collectors didn't care about. Like Star
Right.
Wars #1, Dave is in the chat. Like he and I were at Zap Comics, and there was a this was probably like 10 years ago. There was a Star Wars #1 in the bin or on the wall for, like, I don't know, maybe $10. Nice condition. And I was like, oh, you loved that as a kid. You should buy it. And he kind of felt like I pressured him into getting it. But now it's like a $500 comic because taste changed. No
Right.
one cared about that book at one time. And now
Right.
people think those are really, really cool. So
And you know, some people, I'll tell you this quick story. I might have said this story beforehand, but
Longer than 10 years.
right,
Sorry,
So
I'm reading Dave's chat. And
right.
no.
Yeah, longer than
Okay.
10 years. Yeah, right there. But you know, my son, I've arranged with my son that whatever books I have left when I leave this earth, he will get. So I mentioned to him when I did last December, I did that, you know, the mystery boxes for charity. And then for my birthday, I gave away more books and stuff like that. And he says to me, why are you giving away all these books? I go, well, you know, they're not really worth much and it's not a big deal. And even some of the older ones, the Superboys and stuff like that, you know, I said, people enjoy getting them, you know? And he said, yeah, Dad, he says, but you don't know. He says, like 20 or 30 years from now, that book could be worth a lot of money. And I said that, and I said, you're right, but I said, they're not yours yet. So that's it. You know, so that's true, Doug. What you said is absolutely true. But right now we're here. And so to me, I mean, the movies, at least over the last 10 years, I guess, have played an important part in determining something like, oh, they might come out with a blank movie. I'm going to go out and buy these things in hopes that that's going to come. I've heard this rumor. I saw something on the internet, that type of thing. I don't know if that's happening anymore because the movies seem to be really not as significant, you know, as they had been in the past. So I think most people would agree with that.
Mhm.
Not that there couldn't still be something that comes up. We talked about maybe a
There-
duck saga, but
there's a book, I'm trying to remember who is it by. It's called Hell to Pay. That's still like, it's a 4 or 5 part series, and it's still like, we're only into issue 3, and it's been optioned.
Yeah.
And I saw people in my
Wow.
LCS screaming to buy number one,
Yeah.
first appearance of these characters, because it's a brand new, unique story. But there's all kinds of stories that get optioned,
Yeah.
and nothing ever happens.
nothing ever happens.
And
So yeah, that's right.
so, like, every new story we buy today, from Independence or Marvel, like DC and Marvel don't come out with a lot of new characters, but like Image and Dark Horse and Top Cow and all those guys, they're coming out with new characters all the time, and then they get optioned. Does that mean 10 years from now, when the movie finally hits, or the TV show, are all those books suddenly going to be crazy? But I don't know. And it's changed a lot, Joe. Like you like, it's changed a lot from when we went in and bought books off of Spinner Rack. And the idea that, oh my God, I have to get this very first issue of Machine Man because it may get turned into a movie. No, it was because it was a neat book.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
now I see people ordering every variant. They grab like 10 copies of issue number 1, and they don't read those stories. They don't do anything. They stick them in a long box because it might be a key.
Right.
And I don't care for that part too much, but that's just me. I'm not that kind of collector.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Matt. Like,
For the most part, I agree with you, Mark. But if you collect long enough and you have enough books, you haven't read every book in your collection. I haven't. I've read a lot of books. I've read a lot of books that I don't own, because I'll go back and I'll read the Golden Age books online on my tablet. And so I probably have read more books than I own, just not every book that is in the drawers. Here's a classic example. In 2007, the Free Comic Book Day book, the Spider-Man book, it had a brand new character in it. Now, I didn't buy it. It was a Free Comic Book Day, but I was just sitting there and I'm like, hey, there's a new first appearance. And the character is Jackpot. Okay. I don't know much about her. I haven't read this book. But a couple years ago, they announced that Sony is going to make a movie, a Jackpot movie, based upon a character that's first appearance was right in here. Now, I did pick these up because there's a first appearance, but truth is, I'm a Spider-Man collector. I was going to get these books anyhow. Sometimes you can get a book knowing that there's a first appearance, not really expecting anything big to come about it. And a couple years ago, whenever that was announced, these books were going for like $50 to $100 each. And
Wow.
I'm like, man, I should sell them, but I'm a Spider-Man collector, so I would take it out of the collection. But yeah, sometimes people don't read their books, and they always should. But even then, every now and then, something does pop up. And I'm sure these books, whenever the movie does come up, they'll go for a little more than free, okay, on eBay. I guarantee it.
Well, Mark, I think you and I kind of look at the thing the same way. I mean, when people say, "Oh, you got this great comic," so right now I'm going through, and I went through my 2 cents buying of the X-Men comics, and the second part of that's coming out next week. Like the rest of them that my mom let me keep, as I'm calling that series, and as I say in that video that you'll see, I say, I paid an astronomical 12 cents each for each of them, more than 2 cents. But the point of the matter is, when I was buying them is because I thought they were cool.
Yeah.
Same thing with all the comics that I bought. I bought them, or I followed them because I was a big fan, and I just thought that, and I wanted to read what came next. I mean, I was Justice League. I've always been a fan of theirs. And the volume 1, I'm trying to finish the entire series. I haven't read it all because I've been just trying to collect it. But when I was younger, I subscribed to it. They came in the folded things and stuff like that. Because I wanted to make sure that I got them, especially when the JSA showed up and they used to have for 2 months. I think it used to come out in the summertime, if I remember correctly. Because it came, Justice League America was at 8 times a year. In those days, for you youngins, you either had a 6, every other month, 8 times a year. We had 2 months on, 1 month off, or a monthly. And a lot of them were like either bi-monthly or this 8 times a year thing. And Justice League was 8 times a year. And so I didn't want to miss it. And I'd wait. I'd know it'd be coming soon. And I'd wait to get it because I wanted to see, hey, what's the next team up? What's this going to be about? I didn't think to myself, oh, maybe in the future, they might do a movie. And so not only am I going to subscribe to it, but then I'm going to go to the store and buy like an extra 2 or 3 copies and put them away. That wasn't what we did. We sat down and we read them because we loved them. And so when people tell me, oh, you got this, or even some of the, let me just say some of the Spider-Man books that I had, because up until recently, and that's another story, I just kept collecting Spider-Man books, and I would get a lot of the variant covers and all that. But now I sat down and I started to look through some of the ones that I bought like a number of years ago, and lo and behold, there were some first appearances in some of the books, and they're worth a lot of money now.
Yeah.
But when I bought them, I bought it because I was reading Spider-Man. I wanted to see what was happening next, and to me, that was the reason I bought it. Not because, I have a new person coming out here. This other No, that wasn't the case. So I look at myself, and when people ask me, oh, you speculate? No, I said, I'm an accidental speculator. That's the way I define myself. Because I happen to get a book and it happens to now be worth something because people want it for whatever reason that they want it for.
Yeah, exactly. And I have absolutely nothing against anybody who's speculating and buying lots of books and to flip them. And if they make a buttload of money, that's awesome. And actually, I think that some of it's pretty entertaining watching some of this stuff going on and watching what goes on. I think it's really kind of cool for the hobby because more people get engaged in it. Yeah. It's just, that's not why I ever bought a book was, oh my God, this is going to be worth. Night, madam.
Night. Thanks for stopping by.
Oh dear.
No comment.
I'm not saying a thing. I don't know. Anyway, I think it has its place for making those a key. And that's where we get into Doug's that way. Nope, the other way.
It's the opposite of what you think. So I want to point.
Need one of these, Mark.
I want to point to Alan, so I point to Matt.
Yeah,
that's it.
So yes. I want to point to nothing. So I'm going to point to Doug. So to go to Doug's point,
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I have no idea either. But I know that his brother's laughing like crazy right now. Anyway, I can't even remember where we were going, Joe. See, this is bad. It goes back to Doug's point of what is a key, right. Like to who and what kind of collector defines that key, and that's, I think really that's what makes this hobby very, very cool. Is right. That we all can get along really well in it, and I don't have a problem. It is, I can tell you, it's a hoot and a half when I go back into my collection. That's a fairly good book up there. Up there. Forget it.
Forget it.
That I have a lot of fun when I hear these guys looking for these Grail books that are theirs, and these, oh my God, this is a key book and I got to get it, and I can go like, you mean this one, and smile, and that's probably evil, but it is. I mean, it's kind of fun, and
yeah.
Now this book right here, guys. Let's not pretend this is written by somebody we know near and dear. Mm-hmm. But listen, this book very well may become a key. I don't know if I would give it key status yet. Sorry, Doug. I'm just being,
That's fair.
That being said, this is so well written and it's going to a cool place. This could be picked up someday and be, put on a streaming service. Who knows? I think the story's that solid. Now, we're talking about keys and speculators, and like sometimes, you find books because you like them. I am all in on this book. My goal is to have every single variant copy out there. In fact, I've been trying to manufacture rare variants. Okay,
whoa! Wait a minute. Look at this.
Oh, what are we looking at? Yeah.
Wait until you guys find out the entire Isolation story is an alien's dream. Oh,
Well, hey, I am. an
I
alien.
won't do
I'm
that
not
to you.
looking
I
Spoiler.
promise.
Here's the cool thing. If that book ever does become a key, I'm not speculating on it to become rich. Now, maybe someday Spencer, whenever I, kick the can and he has a big collection of all these, he can flip it and sell it for $1 million. Who knows? Okay. That would be really dope. But sometimes you just get the accidental keys, just like Mark said. You like the stories, just like Joe said. He didn't care for the first appearance, but it feels like every time I pick one of these books up, there's a first appearance in it, and it can be major keys. Now, guys, Neil Gaiman, whenever he was writing Sandman, nobody knew who he was, or at least he wasn't a household name, let's be honest. He just writes this fabulous story, has this entire universe, with the Sandman. And I mean, there's just first appearances, and Doug Bratton, my gosh, I love listening to him on Reggie Collects channel, just talking about all the keys that are involved in that Sandman. Let's just hope that a book like this turns into a key in the future, because I think that would be pretty cool. Okay. So,
yeah. But again, something's got to happen
Yep.
for that to be.
There's a
And
market driver.
right,
out.
and we're all on the ground floor with this.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
And if you are and if you are a member of Reggie Collects channel,
the Gibbon Gang.
well, not the Gibbon Gang, but if you're a member of Reggie Collects channel, you get the opportunity to get whatever they were, Doug, I don't know, the 1 in 100 or whatever it happened to be,
Yep.
To get some other type of stuff that's there. So if something like that happens to me, I buy these things to support Doug and Reggie. I'm not thinking, maybe it's going to be, I would love to see it, as a series on HBO or something like that, but, or Netflix.
Me too.
Yeah, I know you would. But as a practical matter, I'm not buying it for that reason. It's again, accidental speculator.
Mhm.
If I didn't know you guys, I probably wouldn't have bought this stuff. I would have said, yeah, great. If someone said, "Oh, you should read this, it's pretty good," I'd probably buy one and check it out and see what it's like. But
I do have a question. So Dave's comment, does that mean that the writer is alien, or the story is about an alien?
Never believe my brother, ever.
Always believe him. Hey, I'm going to talk about another book that I'm going all in on. Okay. Now, Dreamwalker, written by Mikey Sutton and drawn by Noel Leighton Flores. Guys, this is pretty dope story. This has actually been picked up, and hopefully they're going to start filming soon. There's a director associated with it, but this is being printed by Second Skin. What is it? Second Skin Comics. This copy, I mean, the page quality is through the roof on this. This is issue number 1. This is a Filipino variant, and I'm really digging this story, and I'm learning different things about it. Okay, as I'm reading it, I'm running into this character called a Walk. I've never heard of this. This is a mythical creature. It's kind of like a bird / vampire in the Philippines. Such a cool little story. So I'm kind of happy to have this, and I'm trying to get issue number 2. Issue number 3 is going to come out soon. But Joe, I picked up this is complete speculating, Mark. This is what you frown upon.
I don't frown upon
really
it.
Enjoy the story. Joe, can you show that picture of the book
sure.
you just bought?
Hold on a second.
But if you Google Second Skin Comics, you can find this book on there.
Yep.
But this book right here, I just picked this up on eBay. Was this yesterday or today? I forget, honestly. It is a 1 in 50 virgin variant of this same book that I'm holding up here. But this is a House of Secrets number 92 homage, and it's really cool. I don't know if that's the walk in the background. Kind of looks like it, but I can't tell for sure. But this is one of those books. This is my secret key that I've been wanting to talk about all night. But do you know much about this, Doug, or what can you tell us about this? Because you and someone else we know are actually featured in the pages of issue number 2 of Dreamwalker?
Yeah, I can tell you that Mikey Sutton is a great secret keeper, because I knew him and was a fan of Dreamwalker for months before I found out that it had been optioned. It was in pre-production. It has a star and a director attached. They may be filming the pilot now. I'm not sure.
Fingers crossed.
And it will be a streaming series on a major streamer. I don't know when it will be out. So
Amazing.
if you can find a copy now, grab it, because it's a cool book. And if you get it on the cheap before everybody else buys it, awesome. If it blows up someday, you got in early, and that's fun too.
So,
Hoping
what
at
was
1
the,
in
what was the
50
print
grand
run?
blows
What
up.
was the print run on number 1?
I don't know, but I'm assuming as a small indie publisher, it could not have been that large.
Right, right.
You know, it's I would be taking a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm assuming well under 10,000 copies. I'll say that. I mean, most indie series, unless they're by Image or Boom.
It can't
You
be
know,
much.
yeah.
The only version that's left, only cover that you can buy, from the website is this. The rest of them have been sold out, which
Yeah.
tells you a couple things. One, it's a good story. So it's very interesting to read. And 2, it can't be a very large print run. So I think
Agreed.
the combination has it almost sold out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, part of it has to also do with Mikey Sutton being involved with it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
excuse me, that's got to be part of it, because he's well known, with his website and all that. And so when people see that, they want to give it a shot. The fact that I haven't read it, excuse me, I haven't read it, but the fact that you guys say it's a good story as well, that the artwork is really good, certainly makes it more likely that people will go take a look at it, say, hey, it's, Mikey Sutton, oh, look at this, looks great, I'll pick this up, and people gravitate towards the variant copies anyway. So if there's variants, that's what they're going to pick up, rather than an A cover with respect to that. So, so I think that's part of it too.
Alan's been sitting in the corner being really quiet for most of this whole
Really quiet.
I want to hear.
No worries. Like,
wanna hear
I
some
think
Show and tell, Alan.
Oh yeah, I do have a lot of show and tell. A lot of them are actually exclusives from the Philippines, but I did want to talk to this group a little bit about like certain keys, right? And what to share and what not to share, to kind of go back to like what you're talking about before, because one of the things that I've started to like key in on and collect, like you did, Mark, like was a couple of specific books that had to do with the first published art of certain artists. Like, so this is one of my favorite ones that I picked up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good one.
That
Samurai
was one of
Santa.
your favorite videos.
So, Jim
remember,
Lee.
that you did.
Yeah, good one.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think a lot of books that are like this, I try to collect as well. I don't have the Coyote one from McFarlane, but I do have one of McFarlane's like early books. I think it was what is that? Gosh, I have way too many books in front of me right now. But yeah, so All-Star Squadron is one of his like kind of early
Right.
Early books from DC. But I think one of the things that I'm trying to pick up is, so you guys have heard of ghost books, right? Books that you like never find.
Right.
And
right.
what books today are going to be ghost books in the future is like kind of like what I'm trying to key in on as well. Like, for example, the Amalgam books. You can't necessarily read those digitally on Marvel or DC, because like
Right.
I couldn't find them, at least because I don't know if one publisher owns them. So I think like books like that have like both DC and Marvel on it are easy to collect, but might be kind of super hard to find in the future because no digital site will hold them. So
Yeah.
I think things like that I kind of gravitate to. But so I'm Filipino, and one of the things that I've really liked to collect is a lot of exclusives from the Philippines in terms of books that kind of come into Marvel. And one of the most recent in 2019 when I got back into it was the character Wave. So this is a Maiku Suyan exclusive cover from the Philippines that kind of came out a couple years ago. So what I'm
That's a
starting to
gorgeous
appreciate.
cover.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the international covers for
Right.
the major publishers, because I think
Right.
that's also one thing that here I was just emailing people, emailing shops in the Philippines to ask, hey, do you have this? Oh, do you do international shipping? So kind
Right.
of just going those extra one or two steps. That's not my comic shop or
Right.
a
Yep.
normal store is.
That's great.
I would
yeah.
say one of the keys to getting those books, just talking to people, reaching out.
So see this one, Alan?
Let
I
me
see it.
let me move people around here. Hold on a
Yep.
second so you can see it.
Just to give you hope. Okay, see this book?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Wait,
creepy from
Put
England.
it back up. Put it back up.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Creepy world.
Notice the signature on it?
Neil Adams looks
Neil
like.
Adams. This,
Yeah.
Wow.
this is the Creepy Worlds. It's the Fly variant printed
Fly,
at
yeah.
the same time as the Fly, but printed in England. And it's Neil Adams' first work, which I
Wow.
put in front of him, and he identified and said, "Yep, that's my first work."
Wow.
Excellent.
That's
So-
really cool.
What you're doing with your Philippine books and other books from around, they're being printed at the same time, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely bang on. That's perfect what you're doing.
Yes.
You're going to make someone really, really happy in years from now, I think.
Yes.
What else you have, Alan?
Oh, so one thing also is all of these low print run books where they kind of cancel series. I actually collected the first couple Morbius books, and then when the movie tanked, they stopped making the comic, so I collected that. But a lot of so after War of the Realms, lots of these random books, like Swordmaster came on, Shang-Chi came on, a bunch of different characters came on. So I collected a bunch of those books. And this is so funny that you talk about books from England. So I have The Mighty World of Marvel. So these are reprints. So I like
Yeah.
these oversized reprints. If you could kind
Right.
of compare the size.
Right, right.
These are oversized reprints of comic books that were made here in the US. So I started to collect a lot of these because I don't have a Hulk 181, but one of the things I was able to get is the UK print version.
Nice,
of it.
nice.
I thought I
Nice.
was this is pretty cool. It still has the
is.
same story inside. It's kind of a good talking piece. So I think in terms of keys, I do like to share these keys, but not everyone's going to collect like me, right? So if you look at my collection, Mark, Doug's, Joe's, Matt's, we're all different types of collectors. We're going to have different types of books. So it's really cool to kind of collect differently, but I'm sure there's maybe one other person that's kind of in these same niches that I am, exactly the same niches.
I have some of those books from England, and they are kind of oversized books.
Yeah.
I have some older ones,
Yep.
and they're pretty cool because they are oversized like that, but they're cool. They're cool. Yeah. So, I
Yep.
mean, I think that's great. But Alan, what, you have more to show us? I thought you would show us some
No.
Justice League Dark stuff. Come on.
I do but I know I always show them. I'm starting to collect oh gosh, I went down the rabbit hole of I started collecting original art pieces of Justice League Dark, and that's a deep rabbit hole to go down, but those I will show next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe, I have some show and tell if we're at that point in the show.
I think we are, since people have been doing it.
Okay.
So, all right, let's get you up there, Doug, and let's see what you got for us here.
All right. I got a few. I'm going to start with actually a few that we did highlight on Reggie's series, but some of the ones that didn't take off, actually a few of the ones that weren't in Key Collector that we highlighted that did take off were
Ooh, Wonder
first
Man.
Solo Wonder Man, first Raiders of the Lost Ark, first Battlestar Galactica, first tons
Oh,
of
The
great
Hobbit.
Tolkien characters in The Hobbit,
Yep.
Uh-huh.
and then the first Wild Card series, which is in production for Paramount. So those did take off, but we highlighted a few others. Oh, this one did, but you can occasionally still find Whitman 3-packs of Battlestar Galactica still,
Oh,
which I
cool.
Wow.
grabbed on eBay for like $15. But they are currently making a streaming series out of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Vertigo released this free, like basically like a first issue. They only released it as a graphic novel. This is the first appearance of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo in comics. You can find them online for a few bucks still, and
Really?
and it's an amazing cover, great characters, and if the show's good, I think that book will take off. Black Orchid #1, which was Neil Gaiman and why did I just blank on his name? The brilliant David McKeon, the brilliant cover artist for the Sandman series. This was their first, at least US work. Still, you can find it in dollar bins. Great book. And this one, Teen Titans Spotlight #14, I'm like 99% sure is the first Nightwing solo book. I was a huge Nightwing fan. He's expected to come into the DCU, and everybody knows his first appearance in the new Teen Titans series, but the first comic that he was featured as his own solo title book, this is in dollar bins everywhere. So just a fun, cool book. If you're watching Joe's Amazing Show, this will be, you'll learn about it. But a couple of Sandman books that I have kept to myself,
What?
that I'm sharing. I'm sharing for the first time right now. For the first time.
Oh man, I gotta write these.
Yeah.
Took you long enough.
So one I don't have and is in Key Collector, but I want to share. Sandman issue #75, which is the last issue of the Sandman, has 2 variant covers listed in Key Collector. The second print, that's like listed raw high value of like $125, is a very scarce book, and the newsstand version that's listed for less, like say around $100. The second print I've seen dozens of for sale. In the 3 years that I've been regularly looking everywhere on the internet, eBay, everywhere, I've seen 2 copies for sale.
Wow.
So buyer beware when you see in Key Collector, everybody's aware the second appearance is scarce. But from what I've seen, the newsstand edition is much scarcer. Now, what isn't in Key Collector is that around Sandman issue number like 52 or 53 was the first one where they started printing the barcodes with direct edition.
Right.
Sandman wasn't a big newsstand comic because it was Vertigo in the 90s and it was an adult comic. But there are newsstand versions available of those other ones. I've very rarely come across them. I've seen about half a dozen copies for sale. I happen to get, and I'm not going to spoil the story, but this is a Sandman key, issue number 69. That's an important Sandman key, and you can find it out there if you look for newsstand copies. The other thing, the Essential Vertigo reprints from the late 90s, same deal. If you look, where is it? You can find newsstand copies. These were printed. #1 had a print run of about 30,000. By the time they got to issue 32, the last one, there are about 8,000 copies in the print run. So it's not a plentiful book series anyway. The newsstand copies, I'd be shocked if it is 5 to 10% of the print run, if that.
Wow.
They're really hard to find. but when you find them, they're usually listed without any sort of notation. So there's some
Keep an eye out.
Sandman secret for you.
Great, great. Hope people have a pencil and paper, or else you have to rewatch this entire show. But that's
Yeah.
This is on for eternity, buddy.
Yep.
Just rewind.
right, right. So, anybody else have anything they want to share in terms of like potential keys or anything like that? Any more you got?
I have one more.
Okay.
I have a Gun Honey, okay, which is a series that's being put out by Titan.
Now, this show is not for children.
It is not. Well, nothing's being shown. Okay.
Don't you
So-
have any painter's tape that?
I know,
He's
right? I
covered in
should.
honey. You can't see anything.
Those
Okay,
gun honey
hold on a
covers.
second. We'll take care of this. But no, this is it's actually a fun series. It's well written.
It makes it worse. If you-
I know it really does.
My wife
It makes
doesn't
it a
let me
little
bring
more
any.
funny.
I can't bring any gun honey comics into the house, though. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, your honey might bring a gun, okay? If she sees too many of these. But in all honesty, it's well written, and the publisher is, as Mark knows, this is the new publisher that's going to be printing Conan the Barbarian comic books here coming up soon. And Mark, did you say this was on the cover of Previews magazine?
Yep. Yeah, it's on the latest.
Or
Diamond
not
Preview.
this, but Conan.
The Conan is on the latest cover of Previews to let us know that it's going to be in the next preview.
Yes. I know that's a goofy thing, but it is. But now, Gun Honey, this is my little, I don't even know if it's secret. This was an Adam Hughes variant, and I picked it up. I'm a big Adam Hughes fan. And although I might leave that painter's tape on the book for now, but that's my
I'm
last.
sorry, I'm
little
cracking up at all. At the chat is really funny.
Oh. Oh my gosh, these guys are cracking me up. But yeah, so that's my last little key here. These guys are hilarious.
Okay. Well, I am in Florida, so I don't have my comic books here. I do have one I want to show, but we're talking ahead of time. To me, somebody like a Doc Savage really is something we should be on the lookout for. There are a number of comic books that would make some sense with respect to that, but I also have a ton of the paperbacks from the 1960s. My best friend was reading its Conan paperbacks, and I was reading the Doc Savage paperbacks, which were reprints of the Doc Savage magazine of the 1930s. They're not comic books, but I think they might have some. They're 50 cents each. I paid for them. They might have some value there. But other characters like the Spectre, for example, and fitting into the Justice League, the whole horror area, I think is really something that, and hopefully DC will get into this. I don't know much about Marvel and how the horror is going to go, because it looks like, a lot of those things are on the Sony end and they're not doing a great job with them. But I think the Justice League Dark, the whole horror area, they've tried Constantine a few times. They're now perhaps bringing back the Constantine movie. At least there's some talk of that. That I think is ripe for some really good movies. And I think these are things that people should take a look at. The other thing I'll mention, I'll just show one as kind of an example. I don't mean this exactly, but there were a lot of characters, comic book characters from like the 1940s primarily, that if you take a look at, might be ripe for some, spec if you want to do it that way. I collect these things again because I just like them. So one character that I was looking for, and I just recently got this comic book, I was looking for it, is Doll Man. All right, let me make myself. Now, how many people know about Doll Man? As a practical matter, yeah, I know you know. So as a practical matter, let me see if I can get this in there. Here we go.
That's cool.
So Doll Man, this is a cool thing that you guys throwing him in cement. Doll Man was the Atom or Ant-Man before Ant-Man and the Atom were whoever they were. So, taking a look at some of these characters that are out there, and there are a bunch of them, and I pick them up now and then. This was pretty pretty cheap because the centerfold was missing. All right. So, but I picked it up anyway because I always wanted to have a copy of it, and I said, yeah, I'm going to grab it just so I have a doll man, even though the centerfold is missing. So there were a lot of characters that are there, and I pick up some of these golden age comic books, only because I want to have a comic book with one of these characters that are in it. And I think those are things that people could take a look at, and there might be something there of some value. And I don't talk about the ones that then were recreated, by DC in the late 50s and early 60s. I'm talking about ones that really were there and the golden age versions of those. And to me, that's something where, again, I only collect it because I want to have one copy of a particular comic book that has the group on there. But I think that's something that I think people could take a look at. And Chuck is saying that many non-comic collectors want doll men too. All right. So, I mean, as a practical matter, I think that that's kind of my contribution to this. And I think there's some value there that people could take a look at. So,
yeah.
Yep, I agree. Joe, there's some so cool characters from back then that
Right.
Just to find that's a beautiful cover. It's a nice shape.
Yes.
I'd be happy as a clam to have that hanging on my wall or in my collection. Just there's some really cool ones, and there's potential of the stories like like the spider, the original spider.
The original Spider. I have one of those.
Yeah, those guys from the old pulp stories and stuff. Are they key? Not really, but they are to us. So
they are to us, and I think if somebody's really looking to do, like a movie or a show,
yep,
there's a wealth of stuff there that they could take a look at and potentially put something together that would be of some interest.
Yep.
Phantom Lady is a great character from the Golden Age. I think would be a great movie.
Which one?
Phantom Lady.
Phantom Lady.
Phantom
Right.
Lady.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay. So we've gone, as Matt Woods knows, if I make it an hour and 15 minutes, I turn into a pumpkin, and we're getting close to that.
True
So,
story. Yeah.
so the thing is this. So I don't know that we've answered the question exactly, but I think we got pretty close to it.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there's any definitive answer to this collector's dilemma, if you will. So really, I think we decided is it depends on your personal preferences, what goals you might have, and the circumstances around there, movies, TV shows, and that type of thing. If you want to share it with people so that people have can get their collections going, that's fine. If you want to keep it to yourself, that's your prerogative, so I think that's what we've come up with. Anybody have some last words on this? Okay, no last words. So we're very silent now. So let me ask you something. So Matt Woods, what do you have coming up on your next? What is it called again? The Marauders.
The comic book Marauders. Okay?
Oh, the Marauders, right.
I have a show coming on Sunday at 7:30. For the most part, every Sunday close to 7. Sometimes a guest, they need me to change the times up. But this Sunday I'll be on at 7:30. But I wanted to shout out 3 channels that are going to be on tomorrow morning.
Okay.
We're going to start off with Breakfast with Brian. Okay.
Yeah.
He has a great YouTube channel. A lot of fun to watch. He shouts out so many members of the community, and Comic Book Community Award nominations are getting ready to be put out, or the voting's about ready to start. Last week today with Philtastic Phil, Comics and Art, that follows Brian's show. And then tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern,
big
Savage Saturday, and
Big
Gary
one.
B, who's going to have Stephanie, Madam Blaster, on as a guest. So there's
That's
going to be
great.
3 really dope YouTube channel shows tomorrow.
That's right. And I think for a change, I might be able to catch all 3 of them, rather than being out gallivanting here.
Wait, you're not going to be like hosting Bocce Ball?
No, Bocce ended a few weeks ago, so that was it.
Okay. Bocce season's done.
And I do the movies on Saturday night. I pick the movies out. That ended last week too. So I have a lot of freedom now. So unless the wife says I have to be somewhere, I'll be on watching those shows. So
Joe, I know it's not the same, but every time I hear you talking about the little community you have down there in Florida, I just think of Seinfeld. And I think of Mrs. and Mrs. Seinfeld, down in Florida.
It's not too dissimilar. Let me tell you that.
What was that place called? Boast Vista, or
I don't remember.
I
don't
can't remember either.
But it's fun. So let me just thank everybody that tuned in, everybody in the chat. It was a great chat. I had a great laugh towards the end. It was really good. Thanks everybody for showing up. We really appreciate you, and don't forget now, we've got on Wednesday, I've got the second part of the X-Men thing coming up, and I'm preparing a couple of other kind of interesting things. And don't forget about the other shows. We got DC Watch. We're working on a couple of ideas. One show we're working on right now. And you want to see that Pretty Fly guy put together those tremendous videos. I mean, he does such a great job on that. So it's coming up, Marudo. All right, so it's coming up pretty soon. So again, guys, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you to Mark Andrews and to Doug Bratton and to Matt Woods and to Alan of Climbing Comics.
Thanks for having us.
And listen, if you want to be on the show, just do like Doug. Come up with a great topic, because, I need topics. And it's always the last Friday of the month, unless we do it a different Friday. But usually it's the last Friday of the month. So don't forget to show up on that as well. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. And we'll see you next month. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.